Well, as you've heard here tonight, President Trump is a lot of things, but the question is he actually psychologically unfit for office? And before you dismiss it here, a lot of mental health professionals are answering that question in the affirmative. There's a group called Duty to Warn. Now, of course, none of them has personally examined the president, but they do say they know enough to say that he is a danger for the country and the planet, and it is their duty, they claim, to speak up. I recently spoke with Duty to Warn founder John Gartner. He is a psychologist who taught at Johns Hopkins for 28 years. Doctor, welcome to the program. I appreciate the time. So let's jump right into it. First of all, how about the Hippocratic Oath? A lot of people believe it's been misapplied, actually, in this debate that we're having right now, and also how it plays into the whole duty to warn.
Well, the Hippocratic Oath is, above all, do no harm. I would argue that the field of psychiatry has done enormous harm by remaining silent. As mental health professionals, we see the signs of a malignant, narcissistic, fascistic leader. And to see those signs and say nothing is a violation of the Hippocratic Oath, because our silence is doing harm.
Okay, doctor, let's get into the actual diagnosis, because you are hardly alone in believing that this president is seriously mentally ill. And let's get into some of the diagnoses more specifically. The first one, which is narcissism. I'm going to share a soundbite from the president, and then at the conclusion, talk about why you think he meets this threshold.
I know more about ISIS than the generals do, believe me.
I went to an Ivy League school. I'm very highly educated. I know words. I have the best words. I went to an Ivy League college. I did very well. I'm a very intelligent person. One of the great memories of all time.
Yes, he has one of the great memories of all time, but he can't remember any of his conversations with Russia. This is someone who exaggerates his abilities to the point that is actually absurd. Not only does he say he knows more about ISIS than the generals, there's about 20 or 30 topics that he knows more about than anyone else in the world, which of course is impossible. And he has a very grandiose idea of his capabilities. I alone can fix it, as he said at the convention. So there is this element of exaggerating his abilities to the point that it's not even feasible, and his constant need for praise, of course, and his sense of himself as being the one unique individual in the world who can fix it.
Next up, doctor, the subject of lies. As people know, the president has been taken to task for that, but maybe they don't know the volume. The Washington Post has it that he is lying on average of more than 4 times a day. That's been documented more than 1,600 times. Here's a few sound bites.
I'm just talking about David Duke and the Ku Klux Klan here, but
I don't know, honestly, I don't know David Duke. I don't believe I've ever met him. I'm pretty sure I didn't meet him, and I just don't know anything about him.
I never discussed that subject. I was in favor of Libya. We would be so much better off if Gaddafi were in charge right now.
I can't believe what our country is doing. Gaddafi in Libya is killing thousands of people. Nobody knows how bad it is.
But I was against the war in Iraq from the beginning.
It looked, honestly, it looked like 1.5 million people, whatever it was, but it went all the way back to the Washington Monument.
Donald Trump may be the most prodigious liar in American history. The Washington Post estimates that he has told something like 1,500 lies in his first year in office. Politico estimates that he lies every 3 minutes and 15 seconds. This is very important, not just for the obvious reason that being a liar should be disqualifying for being president, but this is more than mere narcissism. This is malignant narcissism. Malignant narcissism is a combination of narcissism, antisocial personality disorder, so people who lie and violate the rights of others and have no remorse about it, people who are paranoid, and people who are sadistic. When you put these traits together, you have a malignant narcissist who is always a destructive leader. The diagnosis was developed for Hitler by Erich Fromm, who escaped the Nazis, as a way of explaining malignant leaders like Hitler or Stalin. So what we're seeing here in this lying is a component of antisocial personality disorder, which means this is someone who has no conscience and who is ruthless and predatory in his behavior.
You and others have also pointed out that he seems to reach that threshold when it comes to paranoia. He's tweeted, among other things, that he's believed that the former president had him even wiretapped.
So one of the components of malignant narcissism is paranoia. And this is someone, the tweet about Barack Obama bugging his offices would almost be a classic paranoid delusion. But he also shows paranoia in other ways. He always feels like he's a victim of some conspiracy. He has actually endorsed dozens and dozens of conspiracy theories. One magazine published something like 100 conspiracy theories that Donald Trump has endorsed. And there's also the demonization of anyone who doesn't agree with him, of minorities, of the opposition, of the press. So anyone who doesn't kiss his ring, anyone who doesn't acknowledge his superiority, is therefore someone who is actually evil and destructive and in a conspiracy against him. And those people need to be destroyed. That's the psychology of a malignant narcissist. So a malignant narcissist will murder, kill, disqualify, disenfranchise, delegitimize anyone who is not their worshiper and see them as an enemy who deserves to be destroyed.
So finally, Dr. before I let you leave, do you believe or have any doubt that if you were allowed to actually perform a neuropsychiatric evaluation of this president, you would come up with the conclusion that he is unfit for office?
You know, what we're hearing now from Republican staff members in the White House is that Donald Trump is becoming increasingly unstable, depressed, unraveling. There are real signs that he is in a stage of psychiatric deterioration right now. Now think about this, if this were your uncle. If he was depressed, unraveling, and unstable, and he had access to weapons, and he was threatening to use them, as Donald Trump has threatened to destroy the entire nation of North Korea, you would probably call the police, have them take his weapons away, and bring him for an emergency psychiatric evaluation. But because he's the president, we can't do that. But this is, in fact, the greatest psychiatric emergency, perhaps in history, certainly in American history, because we have an impulsive, paranoid madman with his finger on the nuclear button, and he is threatening to use it. And I'm telling you, you should believe him.
Doctor, I certainly appreciate the time. Thank you so much. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll take a look at some local headlines, so please stay with us.